Hi kids, it's MrBillwulf and I'm about to play Sleuth. Let's go back to a time when computers didn't have high-end graphics cards or even sound cards. The time when a basic IBM computer and green screen monitor cost several $1,000s and didn't come with a hard drive. In fact, hard drives were more expensive than computers back then. In short, let's go back to 1983, which, sadly, is the year in which I graduated from high school. Man, I'm old. So old. Anyway, 1983. We had expensive computers intended for serious business like number crunching and word processing and making databases. But as we all know, the true purpose of computers is to play games. So people made video games even for the serious, dull, monochrome IBM business computer. One of those games was Sleuth, a text-based murder mystery in which you have to investigate a murder in a mansion. The gameplay comprises moving an ASCII character from room to room in a mansion, examining items, and questioning suspects. If you find a murder weapon and think you know who the murderer is, you can gather everyone and make an accusation. But be warned, at a certain point in the game, the murderer begins stalking you, and you may be the next victim. Also, when you make an accusation, you have to be in the room where the murder took place. But figuring this out is the hardest part of the game, and I must confess that I've never quite figured out how to determine where the murder has taken place. We'll come back to this point later. A particularly fun feature of Sleuth is that you can create the names of the victim and the suspects. So you can put your friends in the game and one of them will be murdered. Let's do that now with some of my YouTube and Twitter friends. Here we have the option to play Basic Sleuth, which uses pre-generated names, or Personalized Sleuth, which allows us to put in our own names. There are 7 suspects in total, one of whom will be murdered and one of whom will be the murderer. Suspect number 1. I can think of no better first suspect than Gameplay Jenny, Renaissance woman and golden voiced player of video games. Suspect number 2 is Psygnal. This is just some guy Jenny and I know who lives in New Zealand. I suspect that he's a hobbit, but then again, I think that everyone who lives in New Zealand is a hobbit. Suspect number 3 is Zeke Eden, Clown Prince of YouTube and the founder of Iron Man Mode, the blog. He's English, he's funny, therefore he's a funny Englishman. And they said my philosophy degree would never pay off. Suspect number 4. What's a good murder mystery without a married couple? Possibility that one spouse might murder the other is delicious. Zeke is married to Julia, who in addition to being lovely, smart, and talented, is no doubt long-suffering. I'm just saying. Suspect number 5. Let me put in myself. I, of course, am an international man of mystery and a bon vivant. I also have the world's largest collection of frozen pizzas. Suspect number 6. We need somebody to represent Canada, so let's go with the witty and urbane Timmo Warner. Final suspect. Every murder mystery needs a guest star. Tonight's special guest star on Sleuth is Grumpy Cat. I wanted William Conrad, but sadly he's no longer with us. On the other hand, there's an uncanny resemblance between the two. Alright, that's our roster of suspects. Now it's time for murder. Psygnal was brutally murdered only hours ago. Well, that's disappointing. I mean, it's disappointing in the sense that nobody important was murdered. Anyway, the body was removed by persons unknown from the murder scene. You are now standing at the front door to the state. The door is open. Alright, let's begin moving through the mansion. Now, the first thing we have to do is find a magnifying glass, and haha, we found it in our first room. That's good because we need the magnifying glass in order to examine all of the items to see if they're murder weapons. Let's examine the piano. Seems to be a standard 88-key musical instrument. Okay, well, it's not the murder weapon. Let's go into the next room. You have entered the living room. A large divan sits in the middle of the room. Many overstuffed chairs are arrayed around the edge of the room. An ornate hourglass is in a heavy silver frame, and it sits on a coffee table. Well, we examined it, but it's not the murder weapon. Alright, let's continue down the hall. Now we're in the dining room. Aha, there's Zeke. He's examining a silver serving set, and a crystal decanter sits at one end of the table. Let's examine it. That appears to be empty. Of course, Zeke's been drinking. Let's question him. Zeke shrugs nonchalantly and says, I spent the entire evening with Timmo in the bedroom. We were working on some private matters the whole time. Oh my. Frankly, I have no idea what the other guests were doing when Psygnal was murdered. I know a secret. All right, let's go into the kitchen. Gameplay Jenny is studying a calorie chart hanging on the wall. Well, that's pretty Jenny-like. Let's examine the quail. Looks quite delicious if you like quail. No, I don't know if I do or not. Let's question Jenny. Gameplay Jenny replies in an angry voice. MrBillwulf and I spent the entire evening together in the dining room, eating cheese and crackers and playing Parcheesi. And I simply cannot believe that anyone in this house would have had the bad taste to commit murder, though I sometimes think that Julia is capable of almost anything. All right, let's take stock of what our two suspects have said so far. Zeke claims to have been in the bedroom all evening with Timmo Warner. Waka waka down and out. Waka waka down and out. On the other hand, Jenny claims to have been in the dining room all evening with MrBillwulf, where we simply ate cheese and crackers and played Parcheesi. I wonder if Julia knows about Zeke and Timmo. Our task now is to find out if Timmo and MrBillwulf can corroborate Zeke's and Jenny's alibi. All right, let's move to the room below the kitchen, which I believe is the pantry. Aha. A can of Vicious-Swap protrudes from one of the shelves. I hope I can just examine the can, not have to spell Vicious-Swap, because I don't even think I can do that with it on the screen. Seems to be some kind of soup. All right, back to the kitchen. To the bedroom. Now, having played this before, I happen to know that there's a secret passageway into that little room there. A nondescript blunt instrument lies on the floor. Let's examine that. Nope, nothing unusual. Now, the way out of here is not through the way I came, but you have to find a secret passageway, which I'm having some trouble doing. Oh, there it is. You are walking through a blind corridor in a secret passageway. And now where am I? Ah, I'm back in the living room. I think I've already been there, so let's take the steps and go up to the second floor. It's Grumpy Cat, pacing back and forth. I'm going to examine the ashtray first. Nope, not the murder weapon. All right, let's talk to Grumpy Cat. Grumpy sighs heavily and replies, I spent the entire evening alone in the guest room. I suppose you assume that I killed Psygnal just because I haven't an alibi, but I never cared one way or another about that little manipulator. Well. Okay, here's the study. Oh, there's Timmo. Let's see if he corroborates Zeke's alibi. I spent the entire evening with Zeke in the bedroom. Now, if you ask me, Julia is the only person who hated Psygnal enough to commit murder. Maybe that's who you should be questioning. Oh, my. All right, there's the master bedroom. There's Jenny again. We've already talked to her. Let's examine the mirror. The mirror is broken. Well, that's kind of suspicious. Certainly not the murder weapon because it's broken, but I wonder if that's the room where it happened. Silver hairbrush lies on the vanity. Examine hairbrush. There are traces of blood on it. This must be the murder weapon. Well, I'm not going to pick up the murder weapon yet, because if you do, then the murderer has a better chance of getting you right away. Well, there's MrBillwulf. He's in a chair reading Wizard of Oz. That's kind of Billwulfy. Let's question him. I spent the entire evening with gameplay in the dining room. Of course, it comes as no surprise that you would suspect me. I'm sure the others have told you how much I hated Psygnal. But just try to prove I did it. Just try. Now that we've questioned other suspects, let's compare statements. As you'll recall, Zeke claimed to have been in a bedroom with Timmo Warner all evening, and Jenny claimed to have been in a dining room all evening with MrBillwulf. And sure enough, Timmo corroborates Zeke's alibi, and MrBillwulf corroborates Jenny's alibi, so we can rule out those 4 suspects. However, poor Grumpy Cat really doesn't have a good alibi. She claims to have been alone in the guest room all evening. That leaves the mysterious Julia, whom we have not seen, so I need to track down Julia and find out what she has to say. Unfortunately, the murderer has grown suspicious of my investigation, so I need to find Julia quick. Let's go down the stairs and back to the first floor. Nope, that's Timmo. Boy, he's getting around. Back there, nope. Back into the kitchen. Oh, there's Zeke again. The murderer is now stalking me, so this means I'm in grave danger. So I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and pick up the murder weapon. And then I'm going to gather everyone in a master bedroom, because I still suspect that might be where the murder took place because of the broken mirror. So go back into the bathroom. I'm going to get the hairbrush. Okay, I've got the murder weapon. Going into the master bedroom, and I'm going to gather everyone. Alright, and I'm going to accuse Julia. Julia stands up and exclaims, "You fool, yes, I used the hairbrush to get rid of Psygnal, but I did it in the kitchen, not here in the bedroom." Earlier I mentioned that it's difficult to find the room where the murder took place, and in fact, the instructions to Sleuth even point out that that is a difficult thing to do. So in the middle it says here, "Finding the scene of the murder tends to be somewhat difficult since it is rarely possible to examine every inch of the house with your magnifying glass. Fortunately for you, one of the keen-eyed guests will probably notice something amiss at some point during the game. To discover the murder room, you must pay close attention to the behavior of the guests." Now, I have to confess that this has never helped me. The few times I've beaten the game have been by pure luck. Usually I make a false accusation, or I end up getting killed by the murderer. Well, there you have it. Julia killed Psygnal in a kitchen with a hairbrush, and I'm sure she's going to be having an interesting conversation with Zeke. I think we've all learned something in tonight's episode. Nobody likes Psygnal. If you want to give Sleuth a try, I'll put a download link below to it and to DOSbox, which is necessary to run Sleuth on modern computers. If you'd like to see another episode of Sleuth, and if you want to be a guest star, let me know. Thanks for watching, and look out! Behind you!